All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this kickoff event of the 32nd Annual Senior Symposium in the School of Natural Sciences. I would like to kick off this event by, first of all, giving a round of applause for our senior students and for those who are presenting their senior projects today, and to their faculty members. So thank you. My name is Bilal Shibaro, and I am a faculty member in the Computer Science Department, and I'm the director for the Institute of Interdisciplinary Science, or I4. Speaking of I4, we really had a blast this past couple weeks working with the students, preparing their material for the summer internship opportunity this upcoming summer. We will really work hard to support as many students as possible for this internship opportunity. A couple of housekeeping things. This event is recorded via 2 cameras. The camera in front is a 360 camera, so it's recording all of us here. So I always advise you guys to keep showing your beautiful smile at all times. Another thing, you walked in, you saw QR codes for attendance, so I hope you recorded your attendance. If not, on your way out, please remember to do so. We will also be sending you a survey after the event early next week to get your feedback. I'm now excited to kick off our Senior Symposium event with an exciting keynote within the theme of cybersecurity. As cybersecurity is no longer just a technical issue, it's a fundamental concern for all aspects of our modern society. It's our pleasure to welcome to St. Edward's University Mr. Kurtis Minder, who is the CEO and co-founder of GroupSense, which is a leading provider of digital risk solutions. Mr. Minder built a robust cyber reconnaissance operation protecting some of the largest enterprises and government organizations. Mr. Minder has been the lead negotiator at GroupSense for ransomware response cases. He has successfully navigated and negotiated some of the largest ransomware breach and data extortion cases worldwide. Mr. Minder brings nearly 25 years of information technology and cybersecurity expertise to his current role. He has played a pivotal role at AT&T, Siemens Systems, or now Citrix, Mirage Networks, or now Trustwave, and Fortinet. Mr. Minder has many contributions in advising growing tech companies and has also been profiled in The New Yorker and featured in Fortune, The Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, BBC, CNN, and many others. My introduction of Mr. Minder would not be complete without me mentioning a fun fact about our speaker, which is about motorcycles. Not only he calls himself living life in 2 wheels, but he has ridden his motorcycle across the country many times. And today I learned it's at least 48 states. Wow. He also has served as the president of the BMW Bikers in DC, coordinated a popular rally in Maryland, and has several contributions in motorcycles magazines. Mr. Minder, it's our privilege to have you with us today to learn about your cybersecurity world. Please help me welcome Mr. Minder.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, good, good. I've never spoken with one of these things before, so I think it's going to be fun later when I'm zooming in on you guys to see who rolled their eyes. Look you guys up later. A couple of things. This is a little bit of an experiment because I give sort of the same talks over and over again, and I also recognize when I was talking about speaking here that probably many of you may have seen the TED Talk, and a lot of my talks are sort of based off of the TEDx talk I did, and we wanted to incorporate a little bit about the career component of cybersecurity in this. And so this is a Frankenstein of like 3 different talks, and I've never done that before, so it's a bit of an experiment, so hang in there with me. I do want to leave time at the end for Q&A because I think I'm going to say a bunch of stuff that I'm sure is going to generate questions, and that's sometimes the best part of the talk, so hopefully I'll leave enough time for that. I'll start with a story. Oh, one of the other great things about these talks is because they're not official GroupSense talks, I get to use my own slides. And I make all of my slides in 8-bit video game style, which I love. So I'll start with a story, and actually I'm glad you told the fun fact because my story starts with a motorcycle trip. Probably around 5 years ago, I was living in DC, and I have a very stressful job, as you can imagine, as the CEO of a tech company. And one of the ways that I would relax and get away from things is I would ride my motorcycle out to the Shenandoah Valley area. I don't know if you know that area, but it's a beautiful area just outside of DC. And if you can get outside of the jail that is the Beltway, it gets very pretty, very quick, and lots of mountains and rivers and things like that. And I had recently started dating this young lady who had assured me that she was indoorsy, which I didn't know was a thing, but I was going to test that because this is very important to me. She has to be able to go camp with me. And I also thought that it would be a good idea for some reason to take her on my motorcycle. Maybe I should have started with a four-wheel vehicle to start with, but I took her on my motorcycle and we camped. And unfortunately on this trip, as you can see, it's illustrated here, I spent a lot of my time like this with a laptop. And what I couldn't get the pixels small enough for is there's like actually a cable that goes over here, and then like up in here somewhere, there's like a Verizon MiFi or something like that. And the unfortunate timing was because I was negotiating a multi-million-dollar ransom for a large publicly traded software company that had been hit with a ransom attack. And the circumstances, and I'll go into this in more detail in a minute, but the circumstances were such that, I mean, their systems were down. They couldn't do anything. People were going to lose their jobs if we didn't solve this. And for various reasons, I had to be the person to talk to the bad guy in Belarus. So she did make s'mores. I think she had an okay time. We did it again. So, and we're still dating. Okay, so there's that, right? So we did it again. But I ended up spending most of the evening on the laptop talking to a guy in Russia. And that's because I have a weird job. So I started the company about 10 years ago in DC area in Arlington, where I'd spent 20 plus years in tech and in cybersecurity disciplines, mostly on the tech side. And just touching on the career part, I get asked a lot, why did you start the company? And people want me to say I had $1 billion idea, or I was going to change the world. And frankly, the reason why I started the company was I wanted to work on something that was interesting to me intellectually with people I like and trust, that I got to choose. And I've succeeded. So 10 years later, I'm working with a bunch of people I like and trust on something that's very meaningful. That's why I started the company. But had you told me when I was sitting in the coffee shop in Arlington, Virginia by myself starting this company that 10 years later I would run one of the top cyber espionage teams on the planet, and that I would spend most of my time interacting and engaging with threat actors in foreign countries on behalf of large companies, and there's no way I would have believed you that was the case. So when you start a company, you have this sort of grand vision of where that's going to go. It never goes the way you plan. I'm not saying it went the bad way or a good way. It just went a different way. And so we ended up building out a pretty amazing team of what are effectively cyber spies. And our team is worldwide. We have folks in the DC metro area, but we have people in we're probably in, I'm just going to shoot from the hip, maybe 7 or 8 countries spread out. And on the cyber espionage side, that team speaks something like 15 different native languages, and they maintain between 4,000 and 5,000 what we would call sock puppets or personas that exist in underground dark web channels, Telegram channels, things like that, and they're talking to bad guys every day. So that gives us an interesting perspective to the world of ransomware. I did throw this slide in because I just like to say, take the 8-bit stuff out. There's like real humans. They're like they're relatively normal people. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of outdoor stuff. Every time we go to a conference, so every year we go to DEF CON or Black Hat, which are the big cyber conferences, and we all go hiking together and stuff like that. So, as far as and so you can see how old I am here, how gray my beard is. That mission of me, building a team of people that I like and trust is real. I'm proud of that. But that gives us a really interesting perspective into the world of ransomware. I assume everyone here is relatively familiar with what this is, but basically It's where bad guys gain access to your networks or systems. The first thing they do is they steal as much data as they can, or exfiltrate is the word we use. They exfiltrate as much data as they can. I'll talk about that in a second. And then they'll deploy this software inside your systems, so when they hit a button, everything stops working. And I mean everything. And I've seen cases where, because everything's so connected now, they're able to impact anything from obviously the computers and the networks to the telephones and even the HVAC systems and things like that. So I recently did a case where a municipality was hit with ransomware, and they were able to take out all the HVAC systems across the municipal buildings. You know, we're all capable of working from home. It doesn't seem like a big deal if we can't go to the office because it's too hot or cold, except the HVAC systems were also turned off at the jails. And they had to figure out how to move all of the inmates out of the jails that were no longer climate controlled. You can imagine the amount of risk and cost associated with something like that. So the impact of these things can be very kinetic, as well as you know, sort of a cyber incident where they've taken your data and things like that. So where we come in is, you know, typically a cyber insurance company or a law firm will contact us and say, this happened. We need somebody to talk to the bad guys, because the bad guys leave a note. And this is a real one from a real bad guy. I didn't edit it at all, so you know, it's going on YouTube. They're going to be mad at me, I guess. But so just to give you an idea, the notes are different, you know, depending on which group has attacked you or whatever, but they are very similar, sort of templatized. You'll note that they announce who they are. In this case, you've been attacked by Ragnar Locker. They all have sort of a brand for the most part. There's some exceptions to that. They have sort of a brand. They're very proud of it. And a couple things I want to draw your attention to. You know, this next line behind all the asterisks here, they say, you have to contact us via live chat immediately to make a deal. So they're saying right off the bat, right, like, don't pay the price on the window, right? And they say that later in here too, where we want to make a deal. Then they tell you what you shouldn't do, which is, you know, don't shut down your machines, don't reboot, and don't modify the files. These are actually really good advice. Thank you, bad guys, because while they're fairly sophisticated in their attacks, the encryption software they use is pretty simplistic, and if you shut off your machines or reboot or change file names, it may corrupt them. They'll never come back. So that's actually good advice. The middle thing they tell you not to do is don't use any third-party public decryption or recovery you know, tools or software. That's because that's not real. That's not a real thing. And there's actually a big piece in ProPublica where they talked about this, and I've been on a bit of a campaign against these guys. But if for example, you were hit with one of these ransomware cases, Ragnar Locker, let's say, you've got the note in front of you, and you go over to your iPad, because that's the only thing that's not locked up right now, and you Google how to decrypt Ragnar Locker, you're going to get some results, and they're going to be from companies that claim to be data recovery companies. That's often what they call themselves, and that they have special software that can decrypt your software. That's not real. They actually, it's fraud, and they actually, what they typically do is they insert themselves between you and the ransomware actors. They negotiate a price with the ransomware actors, they mark it up 50% and charge you a fee. And so this happens. So the bad guys are telling you, don't do that. Don't deal with those guys, which is a good advice. And then toward the middle here, they tell you what you should do. And I'll just summarize that to contact us, basically, right? So it's like, you know, when you call you're looking at buying a car, you call the car dealership. They really just want you to come in to talk to them in person so they can use their tricks on you. Same thing. Now, what they don't tell you in any of the notes, and this is often, like if you watch this on TV at all, a lot of times they depict this incorrectly. They don't tell you what they're asking for or how much in the note. But they do tell you how to contact them, and typically how they tell you to contact them is via a dark website, and they'll give you fairly good instructions, 101 on how to get on the dark web. It's not super difficult, but I mean, if I was going to try to like explain to my mom how to get on the dark web, their instructions would work. They were pretty good at it, right? And so if you get on the dark web, and by the way, I have more screenshots of other parts of this ecosystem if you guys are interested later, but you'll see a site, it looks like a web page. They're all similar. Typically, they have a timer associated, so the page is custom to your attack. So when you go there, they know it's you. You're the only one that has that address, right? And so as soon as you go there, a clock starts ticking down, right? And this is to create sort of a false sense of urgency so that you'll panic. And they usually attach some kind of threat to the clock. In this case, they're saying that they're going to double the price after the clock runs out. And they've even done the math for us that 200,000 times 2 is 400,000. Thank you, I guess. Some of the ransomware money went to calculators, I guess. And then where I spend most of my time, and I do have screenshots of this stuff too, but is this chat support tab. And there's basically a window where I just talk to the bad guys in a chat window. And that's where most of my work happens. Now, ideally where this goes is you're going to negotiate them down to a reasonable price, pay them, and they will decrypt your files, and then they delete the data they took from you. But part of the reason they took that data is what they call double extortion. So they've locked your files, you can't use your systems. They're also threatening to leak the data they took from you in a public way or sell it to other threat actors and things like that. So you're making a deal that they won't do that. And just to get ahead of any of the questions, no, there's no guarantee. They're bad guys, and they have no accountability. But that's kind of the deal that you're working. And this is usually done via, and here they're talking about XMR, I think. Yeah, XMR. So XMR is Monero, but it's a cryptocurrency. They like that one over Bitcoin sometimes because it's hard to trace. So what we've learned through doing these cases, and hundreds of them over the years now, is at the end of each one of these, we sort of have a rough inventory. By the way, when we're settling, I ask the bad guys for as much as I can get. So I obviously want them to decrypt the files. And I want them to delete the files and promise me they're not going to leak them or sell them or whatever, right? So again, it's not a binding contract, but I get them to say it. And then I'll ask them for other stuff. So one of the things I often ask for is, give me a report on how you got into the network or into the system. And believe it or not, sometimes they do that. And a lot of times they do that. Now, they're not giving me like a PricewaterhouseCoopers quality report, but they're pretty proud of what they've accomplished. So sometimes they'll say, hey, look, we used a reused credential. We logged into your domain controller. We used Mimikatz and saw your backups, and then we did the thing. They just tell you all of the things. And so we learn how they gained access and how they pivoted around the network. And the part that's so frustrating for me is this. It's that with some basic changes in behavior, and I'm not talking about buying fancy cyber tools, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but very simple changes in behavior and policies and enforcement of those policies, most of these companies would not have been victims at all. So most of the cases we do at GroupSense are quite large, like the ones you hear about on TV. I also have a small nonprofit where I do pro bono response for small businesses. And what I learned was that for every colonial pipeline or whatever that you hear about on the news, there's 1,000 businesses in Main Street America that get hit that nobody talks about. And I've been making the argument, I've made it to Congress, I've made it to the White House, I've talked about it at the tech conferences, that we need to pay attention to this because the small to medium business sector makes up almost half of our economy and more than half the jobs. And I'm arguing that collectively it's critical infrastructure, right? While we haven't felt the immediate pain of the amount of attacks that are happening in that, it's a death by 1,000 cuts scenario, and they're taking meaningful amounts, and I mean large amounts in the billions, from the US economy every day. So for the people who are cybersecurity people in the room, I'm sorry, this is where you roll your eyes. I'll look at it later in the camera. But we've been saying some of these things for a very long time. I'm not going to talk through all of these, and I'm going to have a download for you guys later if you want to download the longer form version of this where I talk about what these things mean and how you implement them. But just to pick one, we all know about multi-factor, but here's this one we were talking about today, right? Email and credential policy. What I mean by that is you should never use your work email or organizational email on anything unrelated to the business, ever. And people do this all the time, and of course, we reuse passwords, and so a lot of times, when the media is talking about, Kurtis, they're interviewing me, and they ask me, Kurtis, what do you think about the hackers that hacked into X company? And I said, they didn't. They logged in. They just logged in. That was not sophisticated, and also, all of our security systems, like IDSs and IPSs, intrusion prevention systems, they're there to detect malicious activity. Logging in with a legitimate credential is not malicious activity. That's normal activity, and it doesn't pick it up. And so that allows them to sit around inside your network and do their thing very effectively. Also, stop clicking, right? So I know the phishing emails are getting better and better. One of the things I've been proposing, and this is maybe a little controversial, get your feedback during the questions, but what if we just made a rule where we're not going to send links to anybody in email as part of the organization, period? That's not a thing we're going to do anymore. Why not? We all have CMS management systems, things like that, where the files are located that we want to share with each other. We can tell each other where those things are without presenting a hyperlink. Why don't we just make a policy where we don't do that anymore? So now we know if we get a link in email, don't click it, period, ever, for any reason. That way we don't all have to be detectives and try to figure out what we're looking at every time we get an email and whether it's important or real or whatever. The other thing I want to mention is, and I wanted to mention on the previous slide, but that is, that little box that pops up when you're using the web browser that says update, I don't know if you use Chrome or whatever, do it. And do it like as soon as possible. I know you're busy doom scrolling or whatever, but like, do it. And same with your phone, right? So same with your iPhone. I know it's annoying, or your Android, but they're correcting mistakes they made for your benefit. Stop what you're doing and update those systems, and do it for everyone else too, because a lot of times we are inadvertently, sort of contributing to the insecurity of our organizations because we're not doing these personal hygiene things. So I want to pivot a minute to the cybersecurity career in general, and how I believe that it's different than a lot of other jobs in the private sector. First, I'll say that this career space is very competitive salary-wise, and it's hard for companies like GroupSense. So we didn't raise a bunch of venture capital. We sort of did an organic growth path, which has a lot of pros and cons. But as a result, we can't pay Facebook salaries for our software engineers, right, or our analysts. So how do I get people to come work at GroupSense? And how do I get people to stay? So the company's 10 years old. Many of our team have been with us for 5 or more years. Why? And the answer is purpose. This career means something, not just to my team, but to the greater public. There's not very many jobs in the private sector where you have an actual enemy, like an enemy. It's not your competition. That's different. These people mean you harm, and they are typically in a foreign, unfriendly country that is a borderline enemy in a lot of cases. And so there's a sense of purpose for that, for defending not just your own organization, but the greater nation against these enemies. Unfortunately, they have unlimited time and resources, and you have $5, which is one of the other downsides to the career, and which is why you're sitting by the fireplace with your laptop. Is one of the double-edged swords to cybersecurity is it's a slog. It's hard because the bad guys, they have, like I said, they have unlimited time and resources, just to touch on something that's going on right now in the news. You've seen the FBI has disrupted, maybe you've read about this, disrupted one of the ransomware groups. I don't know if you've been following this, but the person who runs that ransomware group, whom we know, he goes by LockBitSup. That's his handle. That's better than his old handle. His old handle was Bastard but his LockBitSup, he very quickly came out in a very public way and said, yeah, I didn't patch my PHP server and the FBI knocked it over. So what? Here's a new one. I patched this one. Now back to business, right? And back to ransomware. And so, the bad guys have, the amount of money that they're making is also key. So these guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars. I think in this particular case, when the FBI knocked over the server, they were able to look at some of the crypto wallets associated with Lockbit, and they saw that he had something like $140 million of untransferred crypto in one of his main wallets. That's a subset of the money that this person had made from these attacks. And so, having that amount of resources and basically this unofficial amnesty from their home country where they can do this all day long as they don't attack assets from their home country, Russia, and they're not getting extradited, right? Like we know who some of these people are, we know them by name, we know where they live, but we can't get them. So that, going back to the career part of that, our side of this mission is very difficult because we have families and lives, and we have to live our normal lives, but we're defending against these people with tremendous resources and with seemingly infinite time on their hands to do this stuff. A little bit about the cybersecurity market. And I've done a whole keynote speech on this topic alone. I called it "The Software Won't Save You." And the concept is, one of the problems that's occurring in the industry, and I'm talking mostly to the students now who are looking at jobs and what you want to do in the cybersecurity space or computer science. One of the problems in the industry, it's the broader tech industry, but also cybersecurity, broader tech industry, is that how the companies are financed is typically through venture capital, right? And venture capital is not a bad thing, and sometimes very necessary, but venture capital has a prospectus or a thesis. And that thesis drives how the companies they invest in build products and go to market. And if you guys are familiar with the Michael Moore sort of adoption curve, I don't know, you guys know the book Crossing the Chasm? Anybody know this book? Oh, you guys got to read this book. It's a classic. But there's this concept about who buys the early technology in any particular space, right? And there's this very cliche set of early adopters. And most tech companies and cybersecurity companies are building products for those companies only, right? They're building products for the people who will buy them right away, quick, at high dollar, so that they can sell the company in 3 to 5 years at 3 to 5x, that sort of thing. What happens when you do that? You build a bunch of software tools and hardware tools that are only consumable by the largest companies in the world, and they'll use that venture capital money, by the way, to market them as solutions. But they're not solutions, they're tools. And tools need operators. And guess what we're short on? Right? And so supply and demand drives the salaries up, and I'm getting to a point here, it drives the salaries up for the cyber professionals and into these larger companies to operate these very expensive, complicated tools, and everybody else is kind of screwed. And that backbone of the economy that I talked about, that's who I'm talking about. These people cannot afford the talent or the tools, or if they were, loved the marketing enough to buy the tools, they couldn't operate them effectively. So this is why, another reason why cyber as a career is important. We need as many people as we can get. And what I would challenge people to do, this is my representation of the tools. This is like from Simpsons. Lots of tools. What I would ask of cyber students is give back. So for example, when I put up the QR code and there's that document about the things that organizations can do to protect themselves from cyber attacks, download it and tell your friends. Go to your local chamber of commerce and hand it out. Talk to people, and if you can, and you can afford it, don't go immediately to Bank of America for your cyber job, right? Work for the little guy for a little bit. And then finally, one of the things I've been hammering home for a long time is that, I believe that good cyber hygiene and good cyber behavior as an individual or a member of a team or organization is a form of civic duty and patriotism. For the reasons that we talked about before, right? What's happening? We have foreign actors breaking into our networks every day. They're taking our data. They're disrupting our systems. They're financially negatively impacting our economy. People are losing their jobs. And if what I'm saying is true, and I believe strongly that it is, that just through some behavioral changes and prioritizing cybersecurity as just a part of our daily lives. Actually, people have asked me in these talks, they've said, are we just all going to have to become cybersecurity experts now? And my answer is no, and you don't have to become a doctor to know how not to die, right? So there's some just basic behavioral changes that we can do as an individual, and we should do it, obviously, for ourselves, but also do it for everyone else as a community. And I've been also trying to get this, it's not working, but I've been trying to get this hashtag thing going with the Vote Cyber. Why aren't we talking about this? Like, the elections are coming up. Why isn't this one of the top topics that people are talking about? I don't understand it. It is absolutely crazy, the amount of, we're hearing on the news every single day. And what you guys hear on the news is just a fraction of what I see every single day of the cyber attacks hitting the United States and damaging our economy and stealing our intellectual property. And one of the talks I gave in DC was to a public sector organization, and one of the things I pointed out to them that wasn't immediately clear to everyone is, the part of the ransomware attack where they take your data? They've been doing this for 7 years plus. They've been taking the data as part of their attack, as a regular part of their attack. And who have they been attacking? Everyone, so all of the commercial organizations, but they've also hit our municipalities, they've hit our police departments, they've hit government contractors. Think of the data that they have collected over the last 7 years. And remember the amnesty that I told you about that the bad guys get from their home country? You should assume that there's a quid pro quo for that amnesty. The government gets a copy of that data. So, for example, Russia is sitting on exabytes of stolen data that they can use as a seed, as a cyber attack against the United States. And I think we should be talking about that as a national priority. Oh, and that's a zoom in to show there's real people. See, there's real people. My friend Brian didn't appreciate that I put him eating the giant rib in the middle. And that's really my talk. This is the download that I told you about. There's no marketing stuff attached to this. Nobody's going to email you or anything like that. I know it's somewhat ironic that I'm asking you to do it's not lost on me, but I'm asking you to kind of click on something right now. But and also feel free to reach out to me directly if this is something you want to ask questions about or discuss. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for letting me contribute, and also good luck on your presentations today. By the way, I'm sincere about reaching out. Reach out to me. I may not respond quickly, but I will respond. So if you have questions, career stuff, or you see my LinkedIn and there's somebody you want to talk to and you think I can make an introduction, I'll do that for you. Thank you.